You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma Podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Got a fantastic episode for you today. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to the podcast Julie Stewart of Kiss and Punch. And Kiss and Punch is not a gym or anything to do with martial arts. Look it up on Instagram. The Instagram will be down below in the description. It's illustration, drawing animals, and really cool stuff. And we're going to get into it, get into why Julie decided to leave, I guess, the corporate world of being a lawyer and get into drawing really cool stuff and using social media to do that. So, Julie, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in. I found your Instagram and started looking at, like, obviously the cards that you do and all the illustration stuff, and obviously you have a skill for drawing and an eye for design and detail. But you were a lawyer before that, and you were like a really corporate lawyer, which is total opposite worlds, right?
A really corporate lawyer, yes.
Yeah.
This is true.
So before we dive into, I guess, the corporate stuff, let's set a little bit of context. Tell me a little bit about you.
I am originally from Salt Lake City, Utah.
Okay.
That'll kind of lead into why I chose Oklahoma. But I'm half Vietnamese and half Scottish American. I always loved to learn. Was a smart aleck as a kid, as my mother would probably tell you. Loved art as a kid in Utah. So Growing up in Utah, loved my childhood. Looking back now, I feel like art class there was not the same as other places. Mm-hmm. This was like let's go out and pick a maple leaf off the ground, and you're going to make a trinket dish. You're going to stamp it into clay and make a dish out of it. Or, we're going to make a animal pillow, and you're going to draw a face on it, and you're going to sew it together. And wood shop and things like that, like way advanced compared to the things that I see my son do, or when he was in school. So that has a lot to do with, I think, my love for art. It was always part of my life, but didn't know growing up that was something you could do as a career. In high school, I was involved in student government, and I was the one that drew all the big signs for the football games and assemblies, and designed shirts and flyers. But no one told me that was something that I could do as a career. So I never pursued it. When I was 10 years old, my dad had passed away, and shortly after that, my uncle had asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I didn't have an answer. I said, I don't know. And he said, you're smart, you like to write, you should be a corporate lawyer. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, you don't go to court, you don't do any of that stuff, but you do all the big deals, and you make all these big deals, and things happen. Like, they happen because of the corporate lawyers. And I think that he had an accounting background, so that's why he said that. But I took that and I tucked it away, and whenever someone after that asked me as a little kid what I wanted to be when I grew up, I actually said, I'm going to be a corporate lawyer. I really didn't have any idea what that meant until obviously a lot later in my life. So yeah, that just kind of happened by default. Very strange, but I always blame him for getting me into this in the first place.
It's your fault, yeah.
So
yeah. So always grew up with a lover of art, and I think, like, as a kid, right, we just love to draw, right? Most people, right. I mean, I did too, but also, yeah, it wasn't something that I thought I could have a career in. Some of my friends who were very good at it, kind of went into graphic design, but that was a lot later on in school. Whereas, like, when you're a kid and you're 8, 9, 10, whatever, you figure out how to draw a house, or you figure out how to draw. Most guys draw a car, and have the kind of get after it and color it and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. Like, there was no, hey, you can create, and there's the, you can now draw on an iPad, right, and have all this
yes.
stuff, and the amount of technology and the ability to create something now is obviously a lot easier than just like having a piece of a piece of paper and a pencil, right? And those, like, those massive pack of, like, if you had that giant pack of Crayola color pencils, right? Like, you were like, that was like the great,
yes.
that was the greatest pack ever,
yes,
right?
Super pack.
The super pack, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad, it's great. I can't wait to kind of dive into the story, and it's a full circle moment for you, obviously, to have this business and go back to that.
Right.
But yeah, as a 10-year-old, and your uncle's like, you should become a corporate lawyer. Like,
I didn't know.
Yeah. So from that moment, then you kind of go through school, middle school, high school, and you're like, yeah, I'll do that. I don't know what that looks like, but eventually, I guess you figure out what that looks like, and you decide to. Well, I guess, when was the moment that you think that, oh, I know what this is now. Yeah, I'm going to go do that.
The corporate law?
Yeah.
Well, in high school, like I said, no one told me, even though I was technically doing graphic design, no one told me that was something I could do. I did enjoy school newspapers, so I decided, let's major in broadcast journalism. Mm-hmm. So I did that. I went to USC. I ended up double majoring in political science, thought I was going to be a political reporter. Worked in TV news the whole time I was in school. I even did a stint at Georgetown in the summer, one of the summers, and worked at Meet the Press, which I thought, ooh, this is a big deal. But by my junior year, I just felt like this isn't intellectually stimulating for me. This is not something I want to keep doing. It just felt really empty. So corporate law. A lot of my friends who were on the political science side were planning to go to law school. So I kind of, changed gears and started focusing on that. I took a year off, was a paralegal for a year at a real estate firm, actually, and did, I focused mostly on the corporate law part of it. So forming the companies for big deals. We worked on one big deal. It was supposed to be the DreamWorks studio spot in Los Angeles. It fell through, but we worked on the deal the whole time I was there. I got into the other school on the other side of LA, UCLA, and ended up going there. And surprisingly, once I got to law school, lots of hours of reading case law all the time, and any break that I had, I found myself turning back to art, which was strange. I would paint and do abstract paints, and my friends, my classmates said that in law school the whole time I would doodle little things all the time. My favorite thing to do was to pick an animal that I thought our professor looked the most like and then draw it in class. And so I was always doing that and just kind of unconsciously doing that. It was just my thing.
Yeah.
And then any free time I had, I even made this mosaic table. Like, it took me 2 years in law school to do it, but it was just something I needed to use the right side of my brain. Using my left side was just too much and too overwhelming. So a lot of that came out in law school, and it was really strange, but I didn't really pay much attention to it. It's just like, oh, this is what I do to relax, is to do art, and didn't think much of it. Fast forward to when I become a lawyer, still doing things like that, and just not, being in these really big meetings. I mean, I'm the lowest of the totem pole, but I'm in the meetings, and like, I'm supposed to be taking notes, but like when it gets to the boring parts where they're just, fighting and stuff, I'm just like doodling. And I'm sure the partners that I worked with were just like, why is she doing that? I just did that. I don't know. It came naturally. Until one day I was at my firm, and I would say most of all of my bosses that were lawyers were horrible. Every single one of them. This one in particular was very childish, and he liked to fight like we were in 4th grade. So we had it out, and I was like, I got to take a walk. And I, picked up my stuff, and the law firm was in Westwood Village, so I'm still by UCLA. And I walk out, there's, a bunch of restaurants and stuff, and I stumble upon a stationery store. This stationery store is the store that whenever we did a big deal and we closed, this same partner would take us there, buy us a fancy $400 pen, which I could care less about, because you can't draw with it. It's like really like, so when you're trying to sign something, that's the kind of pen you pull out.
It's
but like,
not the one to draw.
Functionally,
Yeah,
it's
total
just,
opposite. Yeah.
And I didn't realize they had a card section in the back. So I'm wandering around. I end up in the store, wanders the back, and I just start looking at the cards. And I'm like laughing. I mean, at this point, I'm doing like kind of like scrapbooking type greeting cards just for family and close family and friends. I do like 10 a year at that point, like nothing big, nothing crazy. But I was gone for 2 hours. And I remember, finally turning my phone back on, and people were just like, where are you? Like, we've been looking for you. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just down the street. I'll be right back. And I found myself after that going back every time I was stressed out. So I feel like the art came with stress. Like, that was my relief, made me feel better. And one day I'm in the store and I'm looking at this card, and I'm like, it's letterpress card. And I'm like, I can do this. I could totally do this. Like, I do this all the time. Just, I don't know how the printing process works. So right then and there, I went back to the office and looked up letterpress printing and learning how to learn. And I signed up for classes in San Francisco, of all places, but I didn't have to go that far. But I signed up for classes at the San Francisco Center for the Book, and I started flying up on weekends to learn everything I could about letterpress printing, and I did that for like a year. Yeah. Started signing up for graphic design classes at Otis College of Art and Design in Los Angeles. So I was learning again, doing all of this on the side while maintaining a full-time corporate job. I did entertainment law at that firm, so that was really crazy. And we had big clients like Marvel and Upper Deck and things like that. So I basically didn't sleep. I just was doing this all the time.
Right.
And then decided, maybe I should not do the law firm life and billable hours life, and let's go in-house. So then I go in-house at Honda, which isn't close. I have to commute there. But I thought that I mistakenly thought that would be a cush job and ended up not being a cush job. I probably worked more there because there the law department was kind of weird. Like, I was the corporate person, so I did contracts. That's what a corporate lawyer does. It's just contracts. And all the litigators there, they use outside law firms, so they didn't really do much. They just sit back and like relax and let them do everything and just review it. Little me, I'm the only corporate person. I'm doing all the corporate structure stuff. I'm doing contracts for all of the, purchasing department. And Honda's a huge company, so it was a lot of work. But by that point, Kiss and Punch had already started. So I probably did both for 5 years.
Wow.
And that got to be pretty exhausting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's successfully now it goes from like a true side hustle to what you do full time, right? Which is kind of like, quote, the American dream, whatever it is you want to call it. Like, most people, and hopefully people listening to this, and if they've listened to this, or if anyone's listened to this for an extended period of time, there's many stories of that, and I love that. Like, it's, This Is Oklahoma is a version of that too. It's like you find something, you go down a career path and you do it the corporate thing or whatever it is, because society tells you need to do something, get a job and have a W-2 and a salary and have a house with a picket fence and 2.5 kids and a dog.
Right.
And you kind of go down that road, and then one day you might look at yourself in the mirror and be like, actually, I remember what I used to do as a kid, and I want to do that. I love doing it, and now I'm allowed. Now there is a platform to do that, right? And then it becomes, it slowly goes from a passion to a business, and then, like I said, you get to a point where you're like, you know what? I don't want to go to work every day. I want to do this, which I can't wait to dive into that too. Backing up a little bit though, why did you choose to go to California, to go to USC from Utah?
Oh, sorry. I should back up. I was in Utah until 8th grade.
Okay.
And then we moved to California.
Okay.
That was the hardest year of my life because, like I said, my childhood in Utah was great.
Yeah.
I wasn't Mormon, but I always felt included. I always felt welcome. Everyone was friendly. I had tons of friends. And then I moved to California, and everyone was just so different. And, like I said, I'm half Vietnamese and half Scottish American. Everyone was just like, what are you? What are you?
Those are two mixes you generally won't put together, right?
And I, after a while, I'm just like, got so tired of like even responding to it. Because I'm like, why does that matter? But that first year was just like, people didn't get me. They didn't know where to put me. It was very, at least that school, that middle school was very racially segregated. I will say, that was just the truth. And I didn't fit in anywhere. So it was really hard for me. But once I got to high school, which was not that far from this middle school, everything was different. It was really diverse, and everyone got along. Everyone was friends with friends. Like, there was no issue. But that first year was really hard for me. I just didn't, I didn't feel like I fit. And I didn't feel like I need to say, I'm one or the other. I'm me. But I picked USC because that was the best school that I applied to. I mean, UCLA actually was always my dream school. And I didn't feel like I could get in, so I didn't apply, which was so dumb on my part, So USC had a solid journalism program, and that was kind of the focus at that point. So that's why I ended up going there. But that was another culture shock as well, because I went we moved to Orange County when we moved from Utah. And then going to Los Angeles was just, whoa. Not kidding. But the first day of orientation, I drove from Orange County to Los Angeles, and there was a dead guy on the side of the freeway.
Oh my gosh.
And there was cops and stuff, but the most disturbing part was that the cops were laughing and just like pretending
this is a normal day.
And it was obviously a carjacking because there was nothing around him. He had just been shot, and he had a white shirt. It was horrible. And I'm like, wow, this is how I am starting my first day of college orientation. And I told a bunch of people that story, and they just kind of like, there's a lot of, I don't know, like, oh yeah, that's normal kind of reaction. I'm like, I don't really think that that's normal, Like, I'm kind of really disturbed by this. And USC is much nicer. Actually, I would say USC is much nicer than UCLA now. Mm-hmm. But at the time, I mean, it was a place where, you had to be on guard and make sure that you were doing everything safely and not doing anything, to jeopardize your own safety, I guess.
Yeah.
So
where does you kind of mentioned earlier that like you always seems like you've always been pretty switched on and kind of smart in that area. Where does that come from? Where does that love come from of education and learning, or just naturally good at things?
My father was an extremely smart man. And my grandmother, his mother, was super smart. I mean, he was the one story I love telling people is that he was the one in math class when he was really young who would get bored. He was the bored kid. And the story goes that his teacher was so frustrated because he's just sitting back like, what is this? And she's like, Dwayne, do you want to teach the class? And he's like, sure. Got up, took the chalk, and finished the math problem. And he's like, and put it down and sat down. Like, he's like, what? He would read like cowboy novels, like in a day, like thick cowboy novels. He ended up being an engineer for the Air Force, super smart guy. We would watch Jeopardy together before he'd passed away. And he was the guy that could answer all of the questions. I mean, except for the things about music and, modern day
culture.
Things. That was me. I'm like, oh, Michael Jackson. But, yeah, he was a really smart person. My mother, he had met her in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. Brought her and a bunch of her relatives from Vietnam, and I don't know. I think that maybe that's why they didn't end up staying together, because she was from a family of 8 kids, and she had to stop going to school so she could provide for the family. So the education was like starkly different, and she was never like a tiger mom or anything like that. She was just like, be grateful for your education. Be grateful that you can have those things. I didn't have that. So you have that opportunity, like use it. So I think that kind of stuck with me. But I already had a love of learning. And now living here in a new place, love to learn. We're at the Hall of Fame. I want to go look around, So that's just kind of always been part of my personality.
Yeah. So you finish USC and then you go on to do your doctorate at UCLA, right?
Yes.
What was was that like, is there a gap there, or do you just know I'm going to go straight, stay in school, I'm finally going to apply to my dream place, I'm going to go?
The trick is to get into better grad school is to take a year off, because then they use the grades from your senior year. And my senior year at USC was the best grades I had. So I'm like, okay, I will do that. I was a paralegal at the real estate firm, and then learned a lot. Went to UCLA because it's the top 15 school. So it was really like a huge deal. I actually... when I got the email that I got in, it was on April Fool's Day, and I thought it was a joke.
Who's pranking you?
I was like, wait, they're not sending like the official letter? Like, why do I get an email? So I had someone at the law firm who had gone to UCLA and graduated. He was like a first year. He called up the admissions office, like, are you guys sending email? You're not doing the letters anymore? Are you sending emails out? So he confirmed that I had gotten in, and at that point, I still had a few law schools to hear back from, but I already knew, like, UCLA's it. So I was really happy about that.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool moment, right? To get that and finally get to your spot. And also, like, for being a paralegal for a year, you're just like, I want to be a lawyer, right? Like, I want to go do this. I can push paper for a year and deal with all these people that sometimes you probably don't want to deal with, and some days you're probably glad to be away from them, and go do, like, and then go for it. And obviously you do that. And how was that experience at UCLA? Was it everything you kind of dreamt about?
Law school's hard. When I was a mentor. I think they stopped asking me, but I was a UCLA law mentor for a couple of years after I graduated, and I was just like, are you sure? Because your job is law school is really just learning how to speak legally, the legalese. Mm-hmm. And you don't know anything. You go into practice, and then that's when you really learn. And I kind of already knew that from the 1 year of being a paralegal. I mean, I learned a lot that 1 year, but it was kind of strange. Like, especially the real property professor I had. She'd bring up a topic, a case or something that kind of tied in with my work experience, and I would go up to her afterwards and ask her questions, and she'd be like, I don't know. I'm like, huh? Like,
how do you not know?
How do you not know? And she's like, I don't deal with that stuff. And I'm like, okay, that just the first, she doesn't know anything about that. And then something else came up that first year, and I was like, I asked her again, and she's like, I'm not really sure. I really don't know. And I'm like, I think that you are far removed from reality and how real estate really works, maybe, because these are not I don't even know what the topic was, but it was not something, convoluted at all. And she just had no practical experience. And I think that she had only really practiced for a couple of years, so she didn't really get a lot of real life work experience. So me knowing that, contracts was my favorite subject in my first year. I did well, because I got it, I dealt with some of that. I didn't understand a bunch of, some of the legalese details, but it was a good experience, but it was exhausting to read all the time. That's why I really think that the art just kind of came in, because it's just my eyes need to rest. They need to do something else besides, review all these cases. They're really just prepping you for the bar exam, which thankfully I passed the first time, because I don't know, I didn't want to go through that again.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a fun process. There's so much pressure on you too, and then the amount of time that you wait to hear, right? And then obviously everyone hears at the same time, and it's just like,
I had to go watch a 3-hour movie. I was like, I need something to pass the time, because this is so stressful. So stressful. And that was the thing. Law school was a bunch of stress for 3 years. The last year was a little better. You have some flexibility. You don't have to take all these bar classes. So I took animals in the law and women in the law and random things like that, and just worried about the bar study after we graduated. So.
What year did you graduate law school? What year did you graduate law school? When was this?
2001.
Okay. So then you go into the corporate world, you start working, and you finally...
No? That was actually a really bad year.
Okay.
So I was set with, I got to do corporate law. I don't want to be a litigator. And a lot of my older friends from the year before, they were getting these huge pay raises just to be a first year. It bumped up significantly. And then the .bomb era happened. Yeah. And then everything kind of sank. And then on top of that, so when I graduated, I was like, I had offers to do litigation, and I just didn't want to. I knew that wasn't for me. And I didn't want to pigeonhole myself, because I knew that if you started down one road, you were going to end up being that bankruptcy lawyer you never wanted to be, or, that litigator you didn't want to be. So I held firm, and I was fine. I'm fine. I'm graduating at top school. I will find something. And then 9/11 happened. Oh, yeah. And I literally was writing out letters and sending them out to people. And I was like, okay, I got to take a break from that now, because no one's going to be focused on this. I eventually got a job at a small family-owned law firm. The husband was the corporate lawyer, and the wife was the litigator, and they had a small little practice, and I worked there for a couple years, and then got into the bigger firm where I ended up doing more entertainment type had entertainment type clients, and that was a better experience, but yet again more stress. And then it just I don't know, I thought being an entertainment, it was really entertainment finance. So you think that your clients have it easy, but they actually work more than you do, because, they're just go-getters. So it's kind of crazy. But just mergers and acquisitions, things like that. I learned a lot of different types of areas while I was in corporate law. I mean, I won't bore you with them, but I worked at the SEC when I was at UCLA, so I did some insider trading there. But those filings. I mean, it's just a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of paper, and I'm still dealing with paper,
right.
But
a little different.
Nice, pretty paper.
Yeah, that gives you a totally different reaction to being served, right?
Yes,
it's
sure.
a lot more fun to send someone a card.
Yes.
So it says obviously that you started Kiss and Punch 2010.
Well, before that, I actually did wedding invitations.
Okay. So you do the cards for family and then the invitation.
A lot of people kind of do the same thing where they, at that point I was printing myself too.
Yeah.
So, the wedding industry is hard. I mean, it's easy because a lot of people that get married and want invitations and things like that. So getting the work is easy enough, but oh man, I had a couple experiences with groomzillas, and that was enough for me to be like, okay, I'm done. Let's try greeting cards. And at first I was really intimidated because I didn't know what my style really was. I just thought, oh, okay, you need birthday, you need all these different topics, and kind of went with that. But it took a while to kind of find my voice. Actually, a year after getting into greeting cards, I had printed a kind of like it was Facebook status card. It was, congratulations on your change status, and it looked like the old Facebook, like a snapshot of it. And I actually got that mentioned in a Wall Street Journal story about stationery, how stationery was making a comeback. So when I had stumbled in that stationery store and saw all these letterpress printed cards, that was like a revolution, like that was starting up. And people were finding these antique presses and, learning how they worked, because, this was something that pressmen did, and, this was not something that a lot of normal artists were even learning or doing in school. In design school. So that was like a revolution, and like getting into that I was like one of the early people doing that. But I lost my train of thought.
So you're doing obviously Kiss and Punch while you're in work.
Yeah.
Tell me about that transition then. Tell me about that, like that. I mean, are you at this point working towards thinking, wow, I can really do this? Was the goal from start just be like, I'm going to sell this stuff, or when you get those first couple of sales, you think, man, I can really do this for the rest of my life?
Well, now I remember the Wall Street Journal thing is really kind of what opened my eyes.
Yeah.
I had one little paragraph. She interviewed me for like 10 minutes. She put one little blurb about me, that I was a small studio in Los Angeles, had a Facebook card. And then all these retailers from around the country started messaging me on Etsy. Hey, do you sell wholesale? I had, at that point, I don't even know how many cards I had. I maybe like 6.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, much about it. And, but I kept getting, inquiries that I thought, I need to look into this. Maybe this is how I scale up, is by, selling wholesale, because then you're making a bunch of cards and then you're just selling. But I didn't know anything about it, so I ended up taking some courses on how to sell wholesale, because I had no idea. And then actually a retailer in Portland told me about the National Stationery Show, which doesn't exist anymore. But at that point, she said, that's the place to be. If you want to grow your business, you need to figure that out. And so I walked it in 2011, and I thought, okay, great, I'm going to do this. Like, I need to figure out how, but I'm going to do this. And, I was kind of intimidated, because this is not your typical trade show. These people had stationary lines, but they looked like stores. Like, they were so intricate and so detailed, and a lot of my stationery colleagues are just really talented and more than just, cards. And so they made these beautiful booths and stuff. And I was like, wow, I got to really figure this out. So while I was Well, the next year I got pregnant, so I had my son. Got rid of all of my printing press equipment.
Took a break. Yeah.
No, I got rid of it because I didn't feel like it was safe.
Oh, sure.
For a little
Fair,
baby
yeah.
to be around any heavy equipment like that. So I found my pressman who I still use, and he prints all of my things. And thankfully, I know everything about letterpress to know when there's an issue or not. And so I skipped that year, and then I debuted the following year, and I did that National Stationery Show for 4 years in a row. Some of my first retailers, were from actually Oklahoma. Chirps and Cheers, that's in OKC. Mm-hmm. They were originally in Edmond, I think, with the previous owner, and they were one of my first stores to carry my line. So that was, really great. And there was another one that's was in Norman called Postscript, but they're not in business anymore. So it was great to meet. Retailers in person, and I did this on the down low. Like, I was at Honda, and I was like, I have to have this week off, this whole week, and so I basically dedicated myself to flying to New York, not answering any emails, no phone calls, nothing, and just focused on doing the show for 4 years in a row. And then, they got to be, the more I did the show, the more I grew, and the harder it got to be to juggle it all. I literally would be at my desk, and I would be folding cards under my desk, and I had like a glass. I didn't have any privacy. I didn't even have a door. It was just a glass wall. So, like, if you really pay attention to what I was doing, I'm like folding cards to put together wholesale and retail orders. And if you were in the mailroom, you knew, because I have this little pretty package, this like big box of stuff, but most people weren't paying attention to what I was doing. So I did that for 5 years, and then I retired from law on April Fool's 2015.
Nice.
Yeah.
Full on, like from day to like get your offer from UCLA to,
right.
to there. Yeah, that's
I didn't
really
even think
cool.
of that until now.
That's really cool. So yeah, you go to this show, and you get opens your eyes, and then like you said that you're into this like for the next 5 years. When do you decide then? Do you decide like that this might be? Is it like the year that you decided to retire from law? Or, I mean, it sounds like when you have your mindset on something, you're going to do it. Although it's for fun, like clearly you're getting wholesale orders, you're making money from it. There's a reason that you kept working at it, and you love doing it. When was the moment that you're like, what, I'm doing this. I'm pulling the trigger. I'm working towards this. I'm gonna retire from law, and actually, like, this is going to be my full-time business.
The juggling started taking a toll on me.
Yeah.
I got to the point where I would get sick for like a month, which just never, happened in my life. And it got to the point where I was going to the doctor all the time, and he's like, I can't just keep giving you antibiotics. It's not working.
Right.
Like, what are you doing? And I tell him, I'm like, I'm taking all the stuff you're saying, He's like, you need to rest.
Not to mention you're a mother as well.
Right.
At this point,
you need to
you have
rest.
a newborn.
Like, I think that's the only medicine or advice I can give you is just
prescribe you 10 hours of sleep a night. 8 to 10 hours.
I mean, it was at the point where like they wouldn't let me. This is before you worked at home, and it's a Japanese company, so FaceTime means a lot to them. So I worked from home, but it wasn't. It was like intense. Like, you are leading this meeting. This is before Zoom, so it was like, okay, guys, let's go through this. And it wasn't easy because there was no Zoom, so it was really difficult. And I wasn't resting. And at the same time, I felt like, okay, I'm steadily growing, but I don't feel like I could ever get kiss and punch to where I want it if I don't do this full time.
Yeah.
And then you're grappling with, am I really going to give up a 6-figure salary to do this?
And benefits and all the other stuff.
Yeah. The benefits were insane there. I paid like $30 a month for like coverage for all of us. It was, so I really had, I grappled with, but you're right. Like, once I make a decision, I'm going to go for it. So, one thing that really we tried to do for, before I knew I was going to quit, was try to find a house. And in Los Angeles, that's pretty daunting. I don't even know how many times we, put in offers, and we just got heartbroken over and over and over again. That it got to the point where it's just before I quit that I was like, you know what, we have to stop. Like, I'm already getting sick. I'm already, like, all of these things. I can't have the stress of trying to find a place. And, it's like, you try to find a place that's cheaper, but not in that great of a neighborhood, or, a nice neighborhood, but it's like a place you completely have to gut or, completely renovate. So, you're making a lot of compromises, and it was just so much stress that I was like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I don't want to put any more energy into this because it's too heartbreaking. Like, my heart is broken. I need to, like, just chill out. And so, I quit, and, we stay renting a condo, and we were in that building until I moved here. And it just, it just kept going up. Like, at that point, I'm like, well, even if I'm making a ton of money with Kiss and Punch, like, this is hard. And when you're self-employed, it's a lot harder also to get a loan, which, I didn't really realize too. So there are a lot of things that I wish people had told me before I quit, but, you learn while you do.
All these things you figure out when you're, like, in the middle of, like...
Oh, yes.
Just, like...
insurance.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just was like, I don't want to keep doing this to myself. At that point, I'm already ready to leave California.
Yeah.
Before I had quit my last corporate job, though, I had a friend who was originally from LA. Her husband was originally from LA. Didn't like it. Didn't want to stay there. And they had this great idea. They didn't know where they wanted to go. And so for 2, maybe 3 years, she told me that every 3-day weekend, every vacation, they went somewhere in the country.
Yeah.
And they went all over the place, like North Carolina, Portland, Seattle, like all over the country. And they were like, they were determined to find their home. And I kept telling that to my husband. I was like, this is what we need to do, because I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. All I know is that the longer we stay here, the further away it's going to be attainable to find a place. And yes, I said that I wanted to cool it with trying to find a place, but man, what are we going to do? I don't want to be here like forever. And at first he didn't take me seriously. He was like, okay, Hawaii, let's go to Hawaii. And I'm like, that is even worse than California.
Right.
Like, what? No, like, it's good to visit, but I mean,
right.
No.
Living expenses, everything's imported for the most part.
That's
like,
insane.
It's crazy.
So then COVID happens, and then my whole, everything changes. I had just signed a lease for a new studio because I wanted to take everything. I was split for all those years. I was splitting my son's room. We had 2 master bedroom. It was a 2 master bedroom condo, but I was splitting. Kiss and Punch was in that room. He didn't have a closet. It was all of my envelopes, and then I just had inventory, and I had a certain system that it all fit, but it got to be overwhelming. Like, the orders were just coming, and it was just taking so long, and I'm like, I need a better system. So February 2020, signed a lease for a studio space, and then everything, gets locked down, and that's when, to me, everything changes in Los Angeles. My son was in 2nd grade at the time. They finished out that year, but then he starts 3rd grade, and everything is still locked down. I don't know about here, but everything there was, you couldn't do much. I have friends that didn't go to the grocery store for 3 years, things like that. So he starts 3rd grade, and that's kind of a transition for kids. They go from, just fun little projects to you got to read this and you got to answer questions. You're more involved. You're writing. You're doing all these new things. So this is how he has to start 3rd grade, is virtually, and it's awful. It's really awful. He has these really sweet teacher, but kids, they don't know what to do with Zoom, right. And it was kind of heartbreaking to watch him every day because, if he got asked a question and he didn't answer correctly, he saw himself on the screen fail. He saw the teacher's reaction. He saw his classmates' reactions. And over that first semester, it just got to be too much. That by the end of that first semester, his teacher had agreed that he could just draw a face on his hand and participate this way. And I was like, wow, let's look into homeschool.
Yeah.
So I thought it would just be a temporary thing. And so that next semester, I withdraw him from the school, and, we just kind of use all the materials he already had. And I start teaching him. I'm like, well, I love school. I love learning. I can teach you. It's fine. And I thought that he was at a 9-10 school. Like, this is like a top-notch elementary school. He did not know so much. I was upset. I was like, you should know this.
Yeah.
You really should know this. So we were going to work on this. And as his teacher, he ended up thriving. And I'm like, I wonder what we should do. Meanwhile, the school still hasn't opened yet. I think that his school in LAUSD was one of the last schools in the entire country to reopen. I want to say April is when it finally opened, which is only one more month before school ends.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm like, I'll just be your homeschool teacher. I'm confident enough to go all the way through middle school if you want, and then let's just try to find a place that we can move, because everything in LA at that point just becomes tent city. Yeah. It's like really depressing. And I'm still in Westwood. I'm still by UCLA. Like, I haven't even left the area. And it gets progressively worse and worse and worse and unsafe. Mm-hmm. That, like, I have a studio that's only a mile away, and sometimes I would call my husband and be like, hey, can you come over and help me? And he's like, what do you need help with? I'm like, I need to go to my car. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, there's just some people around. I'm by myself. There's no one. I was my studio was above another retail business. So, but I was there by myself.
Right.
And I was just like, I don't feel safe.
No.
So he had to do that for me multiple times. And taking the idea that my friend had about going to different places, finally, November 2021, we decided to take a long trip to Florida, because lots of friends have moved to Florida, Texas, Tennessee. And I'm like, maybe, like, let's try it out. It's not Hawaii, but
the sun shines.
There's sun there.
Yeah.
So we go from Jacksonville. We hit St. Augustine and Orlando, like all of these cities. We end up in Sarasota and then fly out, and nothing. We love St. Augustine for the history, but it's a tourist town, so we don't really know if that really is going to fit us. And we come back, and I'm just like, I'm frustrated. Like, I just want to get out of here. At that point, like, I could get out of my studio lease, but there's flexibility now. I'm homeschooling my son. My husband works from home. Like, I work from home. I mean, we can go anywhere.
Anywhere you want to go.
And so how I land in Oklahoma is weird, because it has nothing to do with anybody. I actually have cousins who live in Moore, but every time I would see them, I always saw them in California. I never came to visit. They were like, oh, Oklahoma's so boring. You don't need to come. We'll come here. And they would come. They would come every summer. Never said anything other than boring. So I thought, oh, okay, But in 2021, I start going on social media more. I see it's helping my business, and I get on TikTok. And on TikTok, I seem to really connect with a lot of people from Texas and Oklahoma and like just this general area. And a friend on TikTok sends me, I start talking about it too. I go on lives and I start saying, like, help me. I need to leave California. I don't know where to go. And they send me this article that says, the top 5 most affordable states in the country. And it's like Mississippi and Alabama, I think Arkansas, and then Oklahoma. I don't remember the 5th one.
Missouri, I think, is pretty cheap too.
Yeah, that might be it. And I thought, well, I have family in Moore. I don't know what that means, but I'll think about it. So November 2022, I just spontaneously take a solo trip out here, and I fall in love. It's kind of crazy. Like landing, I'm like, there's nothing here. Like there's no mountains at all. It is so flat. But I go to Bricktown. I go downtown. I see how clean and safe it is. The energy is amazing. The people are so friendly. It reminds me of my childhood. And then I see all the cows and horses. I don't think I mentioned, but when I was in Utah, my grandpa had a small farm. He had some cows and pigs, and then his next door neighbor had horses that I would ride any chance that I got. So all of that comes like flooding back, and I just see a flash of Lake Hefner, and I'm like, wow, there's a lake house at a man-made lake. Like, I don't get it, but I love it. And it's just amazing. And it takes some time. I come back, and I should back up, but when I'm at the airport leaving that first weekend, I'm at Will Rogers, and the most amazing, the brightest orange sunset ever just comes, shooting through the terminal. And I'm like, wow, this place is incredible. And I leave with a lot of hope, because I saw the house prices. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this house would be $2 million in my neighborhood in Westwood. It's just insane. And I love everything about it. And it was more diverse than I thought. Like, my family really, I would have been here sooner had they told me more about what it was like. Because they had been thriving here for years.
Yeah.
And, never really said anything. So I was like, well,
trying to keep it a secret.
And that's what I think. I felt like Oklahoma is like the best kept secret in America. Like, I want to tell people and I want to shout it, off rooftops, but at the same time, like, don't come here. Please don't come here. Only if you've been approved, because,
right.
We need nice people here. So yeah, and since I've moved here, and it was a struggle to move here too. Like, I came back and, my family is like, what? Oklahoma?
Really?
Are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, let me just take you. Let me take you. And every time we came, and I made 5 total trips before we actually moved here. But it was 4 trips with family. And it was like, just, it's diverse. It's more than you think. And it's kind of weird how so many people have, these weird notions about Oklahoma. They have no idea. And I don't feel like a lot of Oklahomies like necessarily correct them. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine doing the same. Oh yeah, just think whatever you want to think. It's just a bunch of cows.
Yeah. Tornadoes, horse and carts. You don't want to live here. It's terrible.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Stay out.
Little do they know, it's like foodie heaven.
Right.
My sister had told me before I moved here, she said, I will visit you once, and that is it. And I was like, whoa, what?
Because you're family, I'm going to visit you once.
Right. And I was like, oh, we have to make it so awesome when she gets here.
Yeah.
And so she came, and I had my housewarming party like the weekend that she was here. And I took her to all of my favorite places. And I remember she has this thing when she goes to a new city, she has to have the donuts. And I'm like, I don't know of a donut place. I don't really do donuts. And for her sake, I was like, okay, let's go on Yelp. I'm going to look and find something. And I found like a 5-star donut place, fresh donuts. And I was like, I don't know. Like, it's got good ratings. Let's try it. Take her. And I think it's open from like 5 to 12. We got there like almost 11:30. So it was really late. And I show up and it's like, there's barely anything in the cases. And I was like, well, let's go for the fritters. There's a cronut, all of these things. And the woman is so nice. She's so sweet. You can tell she just puts so much love into what she makes. And I walked away and I was like, she's getting a 5-star for me because, right. And they were incredible on top of that. And it was at that point my sister was eating the donuts back at our house that she's like, I think we'll come back. We'll definitely come back. And I was like,
Yes. What donut place was it?
Fresh Donuts.
Okay. Shout out Fresh Donuts.
Yes.
For persuading your sister to come back.
Oh, and she's like, when are we
doing
coming
this
back?
again? Yeah.
She's a professor at North Central College in Naperville, Illinois,
Yeah.
which I had considered moving to as well. I was like, I just need to get out of California.
Yeah. You said you're a foodie.
I'm a low-key foodie.
Yes, but still, like, I consider myself a low-key foodie too.
I mean, I got the Scottish tongue, so I can't eat a lot of spicy.
Same.
There's just when we had come to like house hunt, we stumbled upon a Peruvian restaurant in Edmond, and we go there every week. I mean, it's amazing. Zambrano's. And that first time that we went there, we actually met with the owner, and he told his story. You know, he talked about how he came from Peru and went to Miami initially and tried to make it there, and it was such a struggle. Like, he couldn't get ahead. And he had a friend who had just moved to Oklahoma, you know, and basically told him, like, if you want to live the American dream, come to Oklahoma. And so he did, and he opened a restaurant, and it's amazing. It's amazing food, like pollo saltado. It's really good.
Sick. I should have asked you this sooner, but what's Kiss and Punch? Why name it that?
Right. So my very first letterpress class, I learned about the two techniques for printing. So the letterpress is the printing press is like super old, centuries old, 5th century, I think. And back then, when they would print the Bible, for instance, you know, the pressman would put all the type in for the page, like page 3, and then put the paper in, and he'd kiss the paper. So he'd kiss the paper, so once it dried, he could flip it over and do the same thing and do page 4. So that's the kiss technique. Okay. But when I was talking about when I was stumbled upon the stationery store, the new technique was to punch it.
Gotcha. And
to punch it is, I don't use tree paper. I use cotton paper, so it's cushy. And so you pad the press, and then you punch. You know, it's punching the image into the paper, and so you can feel the texture. I should have brought you some. Sorry.
Okay.
You can feel the texture of the artwork, and that's what makes it special.
Got you. Where, and I guess how did you develop? When and how did you develop like your style into kind of like the products that you have? Because I think, you know, you obviously have a sense of humor in your style. You know, so where does that come from? And also then that fits you into, you know, your USP or, you know, for the business.
It was through the trade show. I mean, the trade shows were great in New York because you got real live reactions. It's different from doing like a craft show in person when it's just a consumer. But the trade shows, it's the retailer who has a store, who knows how to sell cards, and gives you their feedback. And you know, one of the first punny cards I did, my sister, she's going to really hate she's going to really hate me for saying
You can name her if you want to shout her out. Come back to Oklahoma.
I call her Teeny.
Yeah.
I came out with the hope you have an unforgettable birthday, and I drew a little simple bowl of pho.
Yeah.
And that's a Vietnamese pun.
Yeah.
And she's like, no one's going to know what that is. And I'm like, but people eat pho all the time. It's not just our own culture thing. It's everybody now. It's totally everybody. And she's like, I don't think so, but you can try it. And I'm like, it was a hit. And I was actually, and I'm gonna say this, I was actually the first person to do that pho, and then it's taken off since then, and people have done way better than me with that card, but that pun. But like a lot of Vietnamese restaurants would be punny, and so I got a kick out of it. I saw the retailers' reactions to it, and wordplay was always a thing I had with my dad too. Dad jokes, I mean, come on. So I just thought this would be really fun, and some of the few ones that I would do here and there, would sell well. So I'm like, maybe this is what my niche is. I need to focus on that. And I'm not I'm kind of a big dill kind of pun person, I need to be challenged. So I will spend hours trying to figure out something. If I just recently did a hamster cart and I haven't drawn a hamster yet. So I'm like, I need to think of something. It's got to be different. I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. It's got to be unique and it's got to be me. So I definitely try to do puns that are not already out there, I guess. Sometimes that's what people want, and here and there I'll be like, fine, I'll do it. But I'm always trying to make it different and challenge myself. So.
That's kind of like, how do you keep progressing, right? How do you keep making it different and fresh? And that it is obviously your kind of lawyer background and way with words and learning, just reading a dictionary basically just to find words, but also it needs to be funny, and the dad joke side, I think, ties into something you remember about you and your dad, which is nice. True. To have that come back around. But how about kind of like the process then of like, and how that's changed over the years of, you're drawing stuff, but also now with like AI, you could probably just type into ChatGPT, hey, give me a cartoon character of this. Like, has that been different?
I haven't used ChatGPT for that, for the actual artwork. I've seen some amazing things, so I definitely want to kind of see what they come up with. But I did a TikTok live maybe like 6 months ago, and I needed some pun ideas for a trade show. It was a small trade show I was doing it, and they wanted they had a punny card category for you to try to. It was a contest. So basically, if you got punny award, then it would be displayed at the actual trade show. And I was on a live. I'm like, let's use ChatGPT because you guys aren't coming up with great stuff. And I don't know what it was, but I typed in a bunch of things, and they're just, it's not, the AI is not there yet.
No, it's not.
Sorry. Maybe for the images, it would give me some ideas of like how to, okay, this is a good position for an animal or something unique or something like that. But the puns were awful. Oh, they were so awful.
Inside jokes is not there yet. It doesn't have a sense of humor.
And it would keep giving me the same one. I'm like, how about more? Whatever you have to say to
be funny, and it's not.
It was horrible. And I did not win that award because I used something that they came up with, and everyone on the chat or on the live was like, yeah, use that one. And it was horrible. I didn't even really print it. I came up with the concept, submitted it, and then I was like, nah, that was horrible.
You mentioned being on live a few times, and obviously social media is a huge part of your business. Tell me about that and how that's aided you and helped you sell product.
Well, I'm pretty ridiculous. I love being ridiculous. I think on TikTok, I have this problem of I want to do the trend, or I want to do something that's funny to me. I mean, apologies to all my fans that like me to like show their order, but it's really boring. It's so boring. It's like, Kate got this, and I can show you the cards, and it's fine. It's an easy way to do social media, but it gets really boring, and I need to entertain myself. So lives, people told me when I was doing my lives on TikTok that they really got to know me better. And even though I did all the ridiculous stuff, and they see my, silly puns and whatnot on my actual products, that they really got to know me. So I thought that was nice, but, that's really time consuming too. And TikTok has changed so much in the last 6 months that I kind of stopped doing that because TikTok Shop just kind of took over. But if I see a funny trend and if I can apply it to my business, I love doing that. It's, I think it's showing me. People might be like, what is wrong with this girl? But it's me. That's me, If it's not entertaining to me, I'm not going to post it. So, it's just there's only so many order videos, and look at what I just printed kind of videos. I just want it to be different, just like the way my brand is in my line. I just want it to be different. So it's funny. I was doing all of this and just not thinking twice about it. And I went and walked a trade show. I didn't actually exhibit in it. And all of these people were like, I know you. And I was like, oh boy. And it was all because of social media. I'm like, you don't like my stuff, but you're definitely watching. So it's working, whether I think it's not, think it is or I think it isn't. So
yeah. Well, and also like you left the corporate world to enjoy yourself every day and do something, right? So regardless if people like it or not, you're going to go enjoy yourself and put your personality into it and create your own personal brand, regardless of the product. Like you can be you completely, and the world, like I said, I think appreciates that and gets to see you do the funny things, do the trends, but like, that's one thing. You scroll your business page or your page for Kiss and Punch, and like, it's a lot of it's you all in everything, right? It's not just like you said, it's not just product. Like there's a lot of like personality there that people connect with, and the one thing you get from putting yourself out there is people feel like they really get to know you, right, and then they're going to buy from you, right? And like I said, that constant reminder, people, because it's very hard to track posting on social media daily, and it's something that you have to trust that by doing this every single day, you are just reinforcing this to people. And it's only times when you walk that trade show and you have people come up to you and you're like, I know you, right? Because you do these videos and you're like, I have no idea who that person is, but clearly they're watching. And one day they might send me a wholesale order, or their business might, or they've referred to their boss, hey, you should order from this person. It's just very hard to track unless you get those personal interactions. Right. It's totally worth doing though.
Yeah. And I've built, relationships with retailers through social media too. Just, DMing each other. They see something ridiculous I do, they make a comment, and, we build a friendship off of that. And I think that's great. I mean, I'm putting myself out there. You're already putting yourself out there when you do cards, whether people realize that or not. This is your perspective on how birthday should be celebrated, or how, this is your sense of humor. And you're putting yourself out there, and social media is just, the same thing. Because some people are like, are you really like this in person? And I say, yes, I am. I really am this crazy.
Hopefully people have figured this out from the podcast, that you are bubbly and have a personality, and, you're not like suppressed like you might have felt in a corporate world. Right. Because you can't really, act like bubbly and person. You got to be straight-laced and serious. And
yes, that's why I got corporate. In trouble for doodling in school and in work life. So
how over the years then have you like developed a business, grown? I see you have a bunch. You don't just do cards. You have stickers, notepads, totes. You do a lot of wholesale stuff as well. Like how has that been to take this seriously, grow the business, and have a product and a brand that you can focus on every day?
It's pretty amazing. It's kind of mind-boggling. I'm in my 13th year of selling cards, and you do the trade shows to try to get into mom and pop brick and mortars, but you also do it to try to attract big box stores. And so I've had my cards in Urban Outfitters and Paper Source, which I don't think they have in Oklahoma, or maybe they have it in Tulsa. I'm not sure, but. That's like a stationary superstore kind of all over the country. And, Barnes & Noble bought them back in 2021, and I just got, a card in Barnes & Noble. So that's a whole nother, beast in and of itself, trying to get those orders for big boxes together. But, wholesale is a big part of the business. I feel like, social media on Instagram is really for that portion, the wholesale business. But I've been trying to grow my TikTok just to, connect with consumers directly and build upon that. Because that's how I started. I started selling on Etsy, and I still sell on Etsy. But I sell on all these other platforms, I'm on Amazon, Handmade. It's just like, it's a lot of work. You think, someone asked the other day, how many hours do you think you work on your business every week? And I'm like, 40 hours at least. Yeah. I work more now than I did as a lawyer. Yeah. But it's so much more fulfilling that, I don't even notice. No. When you're doing what you love, it's, it's not, I don't know, you just don't feel the same. I don't get sick very often now, thankfully.
Yeah, this is kind of like good work for the soul, right? It's kind of happy to the brain, and it's because you control it. Yes, you work more hours, but it's more fulfilling, and it's not like grinding over reviewing documents and getting a deadline out. It's
that means nothing to you. Yeah. I mean, if I have a deadline now, it's to try to design something in time for, a show or some other big thing. And even that now, I'm trying to like, take a step back and, not push myself to like design just to design. I want it to be, I told myself, because someone's like, how long do you think you can do this business? I'm like, as long as I still have ideas.
As long as I can draw and have ideas.
Yeah. I mean, now with like an iPad and an Apple Pencil, it's like way easier. Before I used to on, tracing paper, paper and, scan it in. The designs have changed so much since then. And, as long as I can keep coming up with punny stuff, then I'll keep going,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What do you have any advice for anyone who just like, obviously back when you were talking about just being a kid and didn't know you could have a career in this? Obviously kids growing up now, some kids are in middle school making plenty of money already. Like, is there anyone that's come to you for advice or stuff that like you would just tell people to, not go to the corporate world or take that 1 year off after college? I mean,
I've definitely told people that. When people like hear my story, and some people are interested not in the kiss and punch, they're interested in the corporate stuff. And should I go to law school? And I'm brutally honest. I'm a Sagittarius. I'm brutally honest. So I tell them, this is the reality. When you are a lawyer, your job is to worry. Do you like to worry? Because I don't, it's high stress. So, you have to keep that in mind. And if that's something, I have plenty of friends who are still lawyers to this day. They love it. It's their passion. The same way I'm passionate about my business, they're passionate about law. Cool. Make sure that's you though, because otherwise you're wasting a lot of time, a lot of stress, a lot of energy. And on the creative side, it's just, if you can find something that you're good at and that you feel like you could make a career out of it, then try it. I tell my son that all the time. He wants to start a YouTube channel, and I'm like, all right, let's do it. I'm a homeschool teacher. I can, we can incorporate this into the curriculum. And so we're doing that. Right now he's on the writing portion. Like, we're trying to teach him how to write. And, sometimes he gives me ideas for trends and things to do, and I'm like, I don't think so, but
not yet.
But for him, I'm like, you could be the next Mr. Beast. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You got to try it though. And if this is something that you're passionate about, then you're gonna study it, and we're gonna, give you. I'm gonna share anything I can, give him as far as like my own background and how that could help him, and see what happens with that. I mean, I think a lot of people, the biggest issue is just fear.
Yeah.
A lot of friends who I left in the corporate world don't even really want to do it, and they're still doing it. It's like, you're a talented photographer. Go do that. And, put some effort into it that maybe you can turn that from a side hustle into a full-time gig. Like, you can do it. You just got to be focused on it and, not let fear kind of hold you back. So...
Do you probably wish sometimes you'd done it a lot sooner?
Yes, I'm in the sooner state. I wish I had done it way sooner, for sure. It's crazy. I mean, all those years of stress and then gray hair to show for it. No thanks. Like, I could have prevented all of that, but I just didn't have anyone who could tell me that was something that you could do. I feel like, these days kids have it. You want to learn about something, you go on YouTube and watch a whole bunch of videos and see if this kind of fits you or not. I remember when I was a kid, I looked up how to be a comedian, it was some kind of book, and I read it in elementary school, and I was like, whoa, that's a lot of pressure. No, not going to do that, because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I got older. That's why the whole corporate lawyer thing kind of happened, because I just was not sure. I'm like, I'm not going to be a engineer in the Air Force like my dad, I don't know what to do. So, but kids these days, like, they want to be a comedian. They can watch these videos, they can study them, they can do all these things. They have it made, really. Yeah. There's no excuse. If they got the free time to do it, then they should try. So I try to kind of impart that kind of belief system in my son. I don't know if it's working, But we'll see when he starts, his YouTube channel.
Yeah, subconsciously, I'm sure it'll always be there, right? Because the good thing about being homeschooled and obviously being around an entrepreneur as yourself, like he's always going to see that,
right?
Regardless if he hears it from you and listens, he's always going to have that example of you, like doodling after dinner or just grinding or whatever it is, like just working on something that, like 10, 15 years from now, he's going to be like, oh, like where does that work ethic come from? Well, it comes from an example of mum doing this every night, and even though she loved it, it was still work, but it was working towards something you love to do, rather than like you said, kind of reviewing documents after work. That's just like, God, they clearly visibly they can see that you're frustrated with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're a continual learner as well.
Yes, for sure.
What's kind of the focus at the moment? Are you a YouTube learner? Are you a big reader? Kind of how do you learn, and what are you learning
Both.
right now?
Definitely both.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm honestly enjoying learning about Oklahoma.
Okay.
I mean, I think anywhere you grow up, you learn about whatever state you're in. So I didn't know much about the Sooner State at all. So I'm loving exploring when family and friends do come, other than taking them to my favorite foodie places, I still want to explore the Pigeon Museum. I mean, that was just great. I've gone to the Skeleton Museum multiple times now. I just think it's really awesome. So I'm really loving learning about Oklahoma now, because even that first trip, even though I fell in love all the way back then, like every day is something new, and it's great. Even that ice storm the other day, I was like, wow, this is different for me. So I'm really loving that, and just enjoying my time here. My cousins now, when they introduce me to friends, they say, this is my cousin Julie. She came from California and she loves it here. And I just crack up because I'm like, yes. And what's crazy to me, and I don't see this, but people say when I got here in August that they can tell that I'm so much happier on social media. Like, what is it about me? Like, I'm the same goofy person. Like, I don't see it. What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? But they can tell. And I think that's great, That makes me so happy that somehow that's translating in some way.
Yeah. Have you read Boomtown yet?
No, I listened to that podcast.
You need to read that
book.
Yeah, the book's great, and it'll kind of give you appreciation for Oklahoma City as well, and just the funny little stories in that. But yeah, I mean, obviously this building's great, full of history of kind of the state and the people in it. The Oklahoma History Museum's really good. Right. Pop over there, it's great. Cowboy Hall of Fame is fantastic too.
I would love that.
Yeah, you'd love that, and do all that stuff. I mean, there's so many. Like that's the good thing about here is like, there's so many things that you can kind of experience, and for the most part they're pretty quiet. Like you're not gonna, like you can go to the bombing memorial on a weekday and just kind of go through, and there's no, there might be a few kids classes there maybe, but like you can really have an experience rather than like going to a museum in LA or whatever. It's just like tourists everywhere, and she's like, oh, I can't have a moment. That's what museums are about, is having peace and quiet in front of something.
Well, that's one reason why I love it here. I feel like there's my mantra for this year and moving forward, I think, is transitioning from chaos to calm. Yeah. And because my life I've been back to California 3 times now already, and it's every time it's like, oh, I don't want to be here. I'm so glad we left, and I love the quiet. I love the peacefulness of Oklahoma. It's great.
I had a previous guest on the podcast, Connor Quinn, a couple of weeks ago, who came from LA as well, and he's like, I love the fact that we don't have traffic.
I call the traffic here cute. Yeah. Every time I go see my family and more, sometimes there's like a little tiny bit of traffic, but when the Edmondites, because I'm in Edmond, the Edmondites complain about traffic, it's hilarious to me. I'm like, you do not know traffic. In LA, before I moved, my post office, which I went to every day, was 1.2 miles away. But the 405 freeway was between that. Yeah. It took me 30 minutes to get home every day from the post office. So no complaining. It's fine. You'll be fine.
Do you have your stuff in any of the stores in Edmond?
There's a AR workshop.
Okay.
Is close to me, and if there's other stationery stores I need to know about that.
Have you thought about doing? You mentioned the workshop bit. Have you done any teaching and workshopping for your products, like for your skills and stuff?
No.
No, haven't done that yet. Might be an opportunity. Teach some people, right?
That'd be fun, actually. Yeah.
You've been teaching your son for quite a while, so you obviously have the teacher kind of gene in you. But
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of like I people who do like the paint and sip, right? They have paint classes,
Right.
But I mean, you could take it two ways. You either do it as, hey, if you want to start a business, like I can teach you how to do this, but also like if you just want to come hang out and draw silly figures and have puns on, cars.
that'd be
or
so
whatever, right?
fun.
You can actually kind of enjoy it than
Right.
like make it educational. I mean, obviously it would be educational, but there's a fun kind of sip and draw element to it
I've
as
never
well.
thought of that. That would be so fun.
Yeah.
Wow.
But-
Yeah, I got to think about that.
Definitely. Well, Julie, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in, sharing some stories. I'm glad you're here from LA. Glad you love it. Glad your son seems to be enjoying it too,
Yes.
and starting his YouTube channel, being creative. Like I said, there's no telling maybe he will be the next Mr. Beast.
That
But
would
I
be
mean,
crazy.
just having the process and being able to learn creatively and grow up the way that he's growing up now is pretty special compared to the way that we grew up, and drawing on pen and paper or pencil and
Right,
paper
right.
and having to scan things in is a little different. Finishing up, you're on Instagram at Kiss and Punch, and the website as well as kissandpunch.com, which I'll put down in the description down below. Is there anything you want to leave everybody with, or anything that like either advice or just something that you'd want to leave anybody with?
So much pressure.
So much pressure.
I mean, if you're someone who's in the corporate world and you have a gift that you need to share, then find a way.
Yeah.
Just find a way. Don't be scared. Find a way.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for spending some time sharing some stories. I wish you all the best for this year, and wish you all the best in transitioning from chaos into calm.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you for listening, and we will catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.